Hello and welcome to Curated Spaces, the podcast that explores the stories behind the spaces reimagining how we stay, work and play. Join me, Molly Cooper, as I sit down with founders, owners and thought leaders to hear about their journey of bringing a space to life. Great spaces shape our lives. They inspire, nurture and connect us. But most importantly, they bring us together to share life's milestones with the people who mean the most to us. So, whether you're a traveller, foodie or design seeker, join us as we celebrate the power of spaces and the brilliant people behind them.
Today I'm down in Kent at the beautifully topsy-turvy Boys Hall, where cosy medieval nooks and fireplaces meet contemporary finishes, and a warm welcome from founders Kristie and Brad Lomas. And celebrating the best of Kent's incredible local producers is at the heart of this space, with a menu full of warm, comforting classics. And I'm so delighted to welcome Kristie Lomas to the podcast, who brought this beautiful space to life. I can't wait to hear all about it, Kristie. Welcome to Creative Spaces.
What a fab intro. Thank you for having me.
It was hard to butter them up a little bit. And it's such a joy to be here at beautiful Boys Hall. We're here in the pub, is it?
Yes. Yeah, we're in the cosy pub.
A little wood fire burning behind us. It's feeling very seasonal with the Christmas tree.
One of 6 fires, keeping everybody warm.
Toasty warm. And yeah, before we go into all that, of course, I'd love to hear a bit about you and your background and how you've ended up here in this little pocket of Kent.
So Brad and I have both been in hospitality since the very beginning. I feel like it's either in your blood or it's not.
Yeah.
So I started up a couple of bars with a friend in King's Cross back in, a long time ago now, 2014. And one was a cafe, bar and nightclub called Drink Shop and Do.
Love that.
Which was in a beautiful old Victorian Turkish bathhouse.
Ooh.
And the other one was a little members bar called Keystone Crescent. And
cute.
we ran those for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I met Brad. I'd met Brad kind of a bit before that, but he was running the operations for a chain of pubs that were also based in London.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we decided to do the whole grown-up thing, get married, have babies, I thought, right, well, this is brilliant. You know, my business partner was happy to continue on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, right, I'm going to be a mum that just, lunches and is really organised. And needless to say, I got very, very bored.
Yeah.
So I started up a property search and I signed up to lots of newsletters, started looking around the entire country. And we went and visited a few places. There was a pub in Winchester. There was a townhouse in Margate, and then we ended up looking at a property on the north coast of Wales, which was very similar to this. For one reason or another, that didn't go ahead, and I'd kind of given up.
Yeah.
And then we were sat in bed, opened up a Rightmove newsletter, and I completely took my breath away. The money shot, what I call the money shot, is the front of the house covered in the wisteria. And gasped, and Brad's there, what's wrong? And I'm like, look at this place, it's amazing. And he went, wow, that is amazing. And then as I was scrolling through, I thought, that cannot be, it said Ashford. I thought, that cannot be the Ashford, Kent, that I'm from. And we came and viewed.
Yeah.
And there was a slight glitch. It was supposedly under offer.
But it's not sold until
it's not sold until it's someone signed on the dotted line.
Yeah.
And so we came and looked around and got on really well with the people that were the owners at the time, and I think they really liked our vision.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was November 2019. We got the keys.
My gosh, so just before COVID hit, which I'm sure we'll go into more detail. But for maybe people who haven't been down to Kent or this part of the world, we'll be able to paint a little picture about where we are in England.
Yes, so we are in the heart of the Garden of England, or more importantly now, I think, the wine garden of England.
Lovely.
We are in a little pocket, a little hidden gem. Fairly central to Ashford, 2 minutes from the train station. And you can get into King's Cross in 38 minutes, which is fabulous.
Did it this morning. A breeze.
A breeze.
Yeah.
And you can be out on the coast, several bits of coast, anything from 10 minutes to half an hour, depending on where you want to go. So we're closest to Folkestone, Hythe and Folkestone. Obviously, there's lots going on in all of the coastal areas. And a lovely surrounding villages, and lots happening, lots popping up in lots of spaces near us. And wine obviously is huge.
Yeah.
We have so many wineries, right? You know, the Westwell Winery, that's only 8 minutes away. There's ones in Brabourne, which again is only 8 minutes away.
Yeah. It's just amazing, isn't it? It feels like, I know everywhere feels like it's having a moment, but Kent really just seems to be exploding with all these like local producers. And I feel like there was such an exodus from London during COVID, and just all these little clusters of producers and craftsmen, amazing pockets like this. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I think everyone is fearful for that immediate thought of leaving London, because you've got so much, you know, incredible cuisine. And a lot of curated spaces in London.
So many,
and a lot of wonderful people. And I think when you are doing the whole, I'm going to leave London and talk about it for quite a long time, and you actually make the leap, you have this, is it going to be okay? Am I going to be able to eat properly again? Am I going to be able to be around lovely people again? And that was also part of what we had, that vision with this space, is that those people are out there. And if we create the right space, we'll be able to house them all in one lovely room, or 5, 10 lovely rooms.
Which is a lovely segue, it feels like, into the story of this amazing building, Boys Hall itself. And we just spoke about leaving London, COVID, sort of accelerating that for so many people. I'd love to hear a bit about your experience quitting life in the big city and moving out here and finding this gorgeous little medieval hall.
Yes, so like I said, it was November 2019, and our children were 2 years old and 2 months old.
You're actually crazy.
Yeah. We were absolutely crazy. It felt bonkers. It was bonkers. I wouldn't actually recommend that to anybody. But when we very, very quickly, once we'd moved in, March 2020, obviously first lockdown.
Yeah.
And no one knew what was happening. It felt like this could just go on forever.
Oh, yeah.
Would we ever see people again? Would we be able to buy things again? Would life ever be the same? And I think for a lot of people, obviously that was a very restrictive, lonely time. We were very lucky. I actually look back at that with very fond memories from a personal perspective, because we had that incredible summer. And we'd now acquired this manor house, and we couldn't actually get hold of materials or any help with the trades, obviously, but we then just started outside. So the journey began in the garden, which was very overgrown. And it was 8 months it started off, kind of diggers and dumpers, and, brambles that were very much Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, 20 meters long, the biggest brambles I think I've ever seen, hopefully will ever see.
Yeah.
And then once we'd had time outside and lockdowns had kind of been and gone, and we were also feeling exceptionally lucky that this wasn't happening a few years previous, and and we'd fully opened, and we're having to experience what all the poor hospitality people were also facing. I wouldn't wanted to have been a restaurateur at that point in time.
No. So it actually was such ideal timing, weirdly.
Yes.
You got some time to think and to imagine and to actually live in the house, because you lived here before turning it into the space it is today, didn't you?
Yeah, 3.5 years, which was amazing, because you then really understand how the rooms work, where the light falls. You understand how the spaces could flow. We then had, when we first bought it, what is now the beautiful big open restaurant. That was a very rusty, very tired 80s conservatory, which once we first bought it, we thought, right, we'll do a quick turnaround of the space and we'll get open. And maybe we'd envisaged maybe the restaurant will be in the front of the house. And we'd sort of thought, we're not going to have time or the money to be able to kind of launch into redoing the restaurant, redoing what was the old conservatory. And then as time went on, and then my parents were also heavily involved in the whole project. We couldn't have done it without them. And he, being being a historical builder himself, when he then had started coming around and we'd started doing more building work, he just said, we've got to get rid of that knackered old conservatory.
Yeah.
It's doing the whole place an injustice. And so I don't think had COVID not been there, had not happened for us, I don't think we would have gone into the depths that we have created now today.
Well, of course, because once you're up and running, it's like you're trying to fix the car while driving it and everything's on fire. Whereas actually having that time to lay the foundations, to do it how you actually want to do it, and not be rushing towards an opening date or a set timeline you had this gift of time, which although was very scary at the time, and of course you look back and you know it ended, but at the time it was a bit like, is this just it? Like for the rest of our lives?
And obviously the news was horrific.
The scaremongering, honestly. Yeah.
And this became our solace.
Yeah, I can so imagine. And it's such a special spot. It is, I mean, honestly, I came from the train station. It's like 5 minutes, if that. And you sort of driving down quite a main road, then into smaller road, and then you suddenly turn and there's this like beautiful old horn that's catching the morning sun, and it's all like higgledy-piggledy, and you can just see a herb garden around the back and these incredible big trees around the front. It's just stunning, but so handy to get to. I couldn't believe it. And then, like you said, you showed me through, and we go effortlessly from this really old, I mean, it's dark panelled wood, this amount of like smoky fires, and suddenly you're in this bright light restaurant, and it's like double huge windows which actually come back in the summer, you were saying, and just so light and airy. It's really cleverly done. And you're right, if you hadn't had the time to take away that conservatory, it just wouldn't be the same, that space, would it, at all?
Yeah, exactly. We knew you can do a certain amount of planning, and we did have architects for that space. And my dad had built several oak barn structures before, and we knew that we wanted lots and lots of glazing to let the light in, and so the double aspect with the terrace on one side and the courtyard on the other, and looking out over the gardens, and with the ceiling aspect as well, where it's partially glass. But you can never quite get you never quite know how the light's going to fall, how the acoustics will sound. I'm sure real experts that do this day in, day out will be able to know to a T exactly what they're creating. Yeah. But there was a bit of, finger in the air. Oh, what about this? Should we try that? Do we think this is going to work? Are we all in agreement? Okay, right, on to the next thing.
I can so much, but it's turned out so well. I honestly wouldn't have known. I think I said, feels like I've walked in an old barn that you've converted, and the fact that it's all new is just absolutely mind-boggling. I think it's incredible. And then let's talk a bit about the hall itself. It's got quite a cool history, doesn't it? And you were sort of talking it through earlier. And what was it dating back to? 1616?
Yes, yeah. So the archaeologist that we had over, he was explaining to us, he thinks that the foundations would have been an older property, which was probably going to be a Kentish Wealden Hall house with all the wooden beams and the high end and the low end, and would have been probably what they then extended onto. So in fact, where we're sat now in the pub, these beams are probably some of in fact, the ceiling is the perfect example of the old Wealden Hall house. And then Thomas Boys married Margaret Boys, who had an older family seat a quarter of a mile away. And the legend is that flooded, and they brought lots of materials from the house to this house and created Boys Hall in 1616, completed it in 1632, as we see it now. I have seen a photo the other day from 1847 where the windows were far more Anglican and floor to ceiling.
No way.
So in about 1850, they were changed. And we also have a beautiful old book, which is a lady in 1860. She's sat in the drawing room and she describes the house really carefully. And she's telling a story of a party that happened in 1790. And she describes the fireplace, she describes the beams, and she says fresh windows have been inserted.
No.
And that's in 1860.
Oh my God.
And she says about how the railway line is scorning. And she talks about how Vane, the violinist, came and played Cuckold's Old Ori, and how they had a feast in the dining hall, and there was dancing in the withdrawing room overhead, which I find mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Because that would be the master bedroom.
Yes.
And yeah, so there's lots and lots of history. There was lots of snippets which I've decided to then base the names of the bedrooms on lots of the bits of information and the stories that I found fascinating. Particularly, there's a bedroom which we've called Sovereign, which has wonderful citrine coloured walls, and that room is above where they found a hoard of gold coins in 1970. Yeah.
That's so cool. I literally love it. I'm a little bit of a history geek, and that's just amazing. I guess did that really help then when you were thinking of these bedrooms? Because we walked around them and each one definitely has a different personality, a real identity. How did you go about bringing them to life? Was it basing each one from this nugget and then coming back to that over and over again?
Yes, it's hard when you've got a blank canvas. Obviously, lots and lots of features. You're also restricted within the grade 2 listing, and you also want to be sympathetic to the building, because you don't buy a building like this and want an entirely modern look. You know, you've got to embrace it, and that's what we really liked about it. But when you can choose any fabric, any wallpaper, any paint colour, that is very mind-boggling.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds like a great problem to have, but I then restricted myself to one colour chart, because you go in the paint shops and you can pick up 20 colour charts, and then you're faced with, I always knew I loved green, but I needed kind of 15 greens to choose from, not 55 greens to choose from, because that's mind-boggling. So once throughout COVID, as well as doing the garden, I got very obsessed with history, because lots of us were online.
Yeah.
I got contacted, and I contacted several of the old owners.
Oh, really?
I got passed on history documents. I chatted to the neighbours. I had a guy, an old friend. He is a master of heraldry, and there's obviously some heraldry above the fireplaces. So he spent a lot of his COVID going down a rabbit warren of research for me, which was fabulous. And then I found these little stories. They're either names of people or little bits and fragments that I could then attach to each bedroom, because I didn't want the bedrooms to have a number.
No.
It didn't feel personal enough. And then once I had found the names off the back of that, I'm like, right, okay, Margaret, for instance, which was Thomas's wife, the room that we believe probably would have been her bedroom because it has the secret linking door to the master bedroom. Then knowing that, having her in my head, I then, from living in the house, would think, okay, where would Margaret spend her time? Would she have been wandering around the garden? And brought that then into the room as well.
Yeah.
And the soft greens and the woodland wallpaper, and we've got some lovely Linwood floral printed fabric for the curtains.
Yeah.
And kind of that's the rabbit warren that I went down.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because obviously you have a building like this which is hundreds of years and has all these layers of stories and history and all those parties that happened in 1860. But it's very hard when you come here today, maybe for just a dinner or just a night, to sort of connect with that, or, you know, have time to consume it. Whereas actually sort of breathe it and build it into the walls and the rooms and the spaces. Everyone can have that little connection to the Margaret room they stayed in, and they might get a snippet about the history. So I think it's such a clever way to bring it to life in a really natural way.
Yeah. I'm glad you can see that, because living here as well, we would then manage to figure out how the space would be used.
Yeah.
The pub, funnily enough, was actually already a pub. It was
Really?
it was the bar that they'd had. Yeah, this carpet's actually original to the 80s, but I love it.
I love it.
And this became our hideout when things were really intense and there was dust everywhere and we were working 20 hours a day and it was absolutely madness. This was the one room that we kept coming back to. We'd have a few friends, the music would get cranked up.
Yeah.
There would be dancing, there would be probably lots of Negronis.
Oh.
And then we thought, well, we can't, this is this space. It just works. And it's going through into the bar lounge as well. Each space then naturally, organically found its identity, I guess, because we had time. And then the vision came from there.
I love that you didn't just come here and be like, this is what I'm going to do. I've got my architect's plans.
Yeah.
You were led by the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so special. And looking around here, it's obviously we're in the pub, but throughout the whole hall, there's this really lovely mix of like gorgeous big modern sofas and like gorgeous velvet tones, and then really old, like here, like pub stools literally just there. How did you go about finding all these amazing items?
Yeah, a lot of time and effort and a lot of shopping, which was for a little while a brilliant problem to have.
Yeah.
I did lots of shopping at auction. And also during COVID, because everyone was online and there was lots for sale. So I kept buying and I just kept thinking the bigger the better, because whenever you brought something into this house, it shrank.
I can so imagine.
And then antiques fairs, so many antiques fairs. A lot of things were secondhand, re-upholstered, upcycled, recycled. Not just because that was the aesthetic that went with the house.
Yeah.
Also just, I've always done that.
Yeah.
My family's always done that. We've always been in antique shops and hunting down things that are pre-loved. Where we couldn't, or it didn't necessarily fit, we've obviously bought new and got things that were bespoke or bespoke made. And we've also tried to use, so I collaborated on the interiors with Kagu, a local interior design, and I've known Ben there for quite some time. And we tried to use lots of natural materials as well. So wood, obviously the whole restaurant's made from wood, but leftover wood, he then bespoke made a couple of the coffee tables that are leftover trees from making the restaurant. And they're one's topped with marble that was from a local stonemasons. And there's lots of things perhaps that are made out of willow. So we've got the large willow pendants in the restaurant. And we've tried to do, I'd say about 80% is probably antique or pre-loved.
Yeah.
And probably about 20% of what we've got is brand new.
Yeah, and I really love that. Like you say, this building, you can't create or make that sort of warmth and sense of place and soul that comes with old buildings. And this is exactly the same with furniture. If you just buy a load of new stuff, you just can't get that sort of collected, curated sensation that you get so well here.
And aged leather, you can only buy that. Like, you know when a chair's been sat in 500 times.
Yeah.
And you can just have it resprung.
Yeah, there you go. Handy, helpful tips there for everyone listening in. And it's also so sustainable as well. And this like push away from fast fashion and fast furniture, even worse.
Yes. We're still actually, there's quite a few things that we've done thus far to be as sustainable as we can. Like I said earlier, the biomass boiler was one, making a decision to go induction with the kitchen, the way that the menu is done to try and have as little waste as possible. And working with obviously the local suppliers and trying to do the zero, we're trying to get to zero plastics.
Yeah.
But you know, there's nothing particularly single use, especially not in any of the bedrooms.
Yeah.
In fact, Pellegrim's is the toiletries that we use in the bathrooms, and they have zero plastics and they're all refillable, and they are made using the waste grape seeds and skins from the nearby vineyard of Westwell.
No way.
Which is wonderful, and they smell delicious and they are dreamy. So if you go into the toilets, make sure you use the hand cream.
Oh, I already did and can confirm. Smells delicious. As does the whole place here. I think you said you have your winter scent at the moment.
So we have our cinnamon and orange winter scent, and then when we get to January, we'll get back to our bespoke scent that we had made for us locally in Rye. There's a shop called Hunter Jones, and he's done a few scents. And when he sent them to me, I thought it was Christmas Day. I had 6 bottles arrive, and I was sniffing them all day. I think everyone thought I was mad. I was so excited. And we settled on rose, tomato, and oak wood.
Ooh.
Yes, that's what you can smell as well.
I really love that. And also kind of keys in with like the oaky fires, the gardens, the veggie patches and herbs.
Yeah,
so clever. God, I love it. And let's talk about the food then, because I know that's such a huge part of what you do here. And we already spoke about Garden of England on your doorstep. So who was bringing that together? Was this you, or was this more Brad's thing?
So we always knew that we wanted to have a restaurant here. And Brad has always been a crazy fanatic of food. He's always cooking, or was always cooking, in his spare time, which he doesn't have any spare time now. But he was always obsessive over fire cooking, and he would always be big on flavour. And we've been lucky enough to go around a lot of restaurants and be really, really inspired. And I think when he designed the kitchen here and really led the way on what we wanted. So fire is a big thing. We have that she's called Jolene. Jolene is the first thing. They light Jolene the minute they get in the morning. And so a lot of the food is cooked over fire. And when Brad was designing the kitchen, also we've tried to make as many sustainable decisions as we can. So it's fully induction other than Jolene. So a lot of things are charred, fire cooked, flame grilled, whatever you want to call it. And we have some, again, not Wine Garden of England. We are Wine Garden of England, but because we're the Garden of England, we've got so many wonderful producers. Small, local. We've got a guy called Ed, who does some incredible regenerative farming just up the road. And he supplies us with loads of our fruit and veg. So a lot of we've tried to keep all of our produce and ingredients to within sort of 25, 30 miles, and kind of going for small independents. So that things can vary, things can change. We've had to manage expectations on that front. We've got lemon sole written on the menu, but if that's not what they managed to catch that day, I'm sorry, but the fish is different today. And the cuisine's very world inspired. Our head chef, Charlie, he has a very small, not small actually, there's about 12 of them, so it's probably not that small, but young, passionate team that he's created. And he loves world cuisine. He is big on flavour. And he likes to work with a lot of colour, so that there's a lot coming to life on a plate. And I think traditionally, because of the ingredients, it is British. And where possible, he will try to swap things out. If something would have perhaps, if an Asian dish might have perhaps had a bit more of an edamame bean, then he might use a pea.
Oh, I love it.
Where there would be a translation. And then we have we start off with snacks on the menu, which are designed really to have in any of the spaces, and grazing and sharing, as well as our charcuterie board and cheese board. And then we have probably about 6 starters, about 6 mains. Then we've got a section from the grill, a load of sides. And it's funny how you see different people in the restaurant. Lots of people want to go kind of starter, main, dessert, and very traditional. And then you might perhaps get a younger crowd in, and it'll be a whole...
Share some plates, shall we?
Exactly.
Put it all in the middle and just...
Exactly.
Yeah, it's my fave.
Yeah. And then we also have a set menu, which is on usually at a reduced price. So it's more accessible, based around mainly about the lunch times.
Yeah.
And that is whatever I call it hyper seasonal, hyper local. It's whatever usually Ed comes in and says, I've got, X amount of mulberries. I've got X amount of these squash.
Yeah.
I've probably only got them for 2 weeks or maybe even 1 week. Do you want them? And this is what you can have them for a week, and that's it. So that's that menu.
I think that's so amazing. Like, obviously everywhere is shifting towards seasonal, but actually being that local and that seasonal is really quite something.
Yeah.
And I love how it's just like completely spices up what you'll have 1 week compared to the next week, and you can really eat with the seasons. And actually I think that suits this space so well. As we were saying earlier, well, you were telling me how today it's a crisp autumnal day, the fires are lit, the Christmas decorations are up, it's cozy, it's warm. And then you were saying, but summer comes and everyone's out in the garden, spilling onto the chairs and the tables out there.
Yeah, I think when people come in wintertime, they get cozy vibes all round, all the fires and everything's glowing and all the darker colours inside. And then they come back in the summer and the space, like the sunlight and the warmth and the gardens and the terraces and everything moves outside. All the umbrellas are out, all the outdoor cushions, and it's all Aperol spritz and G&Ts.
Yeah.
And it was magical outside in the summer. Everyone wandering around the lawn, people playing croquet, people playing cub. So it was amazing to see people use the space in summer, and they loved it.
It's funny because as you were speaking then, you were talking about people spilling out and having almost like this garden party and croquet. It made me feel like, God, it could be in 1860 again. And maybe that woman writing the diary entry might be writing another one in the summer and it'd be saying exactly the same thing. It's like a very timeless feel to that. And this building it doesn't feel stuffy or old at all. It feels very fresh and modern in a very sort of timeless way. It's a very clever balance you've got there.
Good, thank you. Yeah, that was the plan. Because hospitality, if it's in your blood, you like making people happy. You like giving them the warm, fuzzy feels. And we wanted it to feel home from home, but considered. So we were looking to create a modern country vibe that's sympathetic to the building, because you have to be, and because we want to be. Because there's some beautiful features that have been here for 400 odd years. And at the time, and also I think just making it comfortable, making it cozy, something that's timeless, hopefully. Also, you've just got to go with what you really like when there's so much choice out there. And if I was choosing something, or when I was collaborating with Kagu on the interiors, you've got to go for your gut feeling of what you really enjoy and what sings to you. Because if you like it, then chances are other people will like it.
Yeah, definitely. And then even if anyone else likes it, at least you do.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, but I'm sure everyone who comes here loves it. I know that I do. And then, okay, so we brought it to life. It's up and running. I can't believe it's only been a year since you opened, by the way. I find that mind-boggling. I'd love to know a bit about what the next chapter looks like, and if you've got anything coming up or something in the pipeline for the next month, years.
So we have first of all, actually, a holiday, please. That's what I'd like first.
A work-life balance.
I mean, I'm not deluded. That's not going to happen. But just one long little holiday. We have some cabins in the pipeline. And it's not a particularly large site. We've got 3 acres and we have an acre around a little pond, which I would love to be able to make it a natural swimming pond.
Oh, yeah.
That would be my ultimate dream. And we're going to have some cabins, luxury cabins around the pond. And then we have a beautiful, well, it will be beautiful, it's not right now, an old walled garden where the walls need quite a lot of TLC. And then we would love to have, it gets the sun from dawn until dusk.
Heaven.
And obviously with a walled garden, you're very sheltered.
Yeah.
So, pizzas, fire pits, gin bar,
I love
outdoor
it.
cooking, while away the hours in the sun.
Oh,
that
literally sounds like heaven.
That's the plan.
Oh, I want to come and staycay here. I want to be in the walled garden gin bar.
Well, now you know we're so close.
It's actually 7 minutes. I still can't get over it. Oh, well, it's been such a pleasure chatting, hearing about this incredible space. Before we do go, I, of course, have a closing tradition. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You imagine you've cashed that winning lottery check, and just let me know what space comes to mind for you. So, number 1, as we were just saying then, where are you running away to disconnect and to detox?
So I visited a friend a long time ago, years ago, and I've always dreamt about going back. And she was staying in a tree house up in the jungle on an island just off of Panama.
What?
And we woke up every morning and you could hear the monkeys. In fact, it was the monkeys that woke you up. And we just used to, and actually it was also a chocolate and butterfly farm.
Do they go together?
Apparently so. And it was possibly one of the most tranquil spaces that I've ever been in my life.
Gosh, that sounds amazing.
That's where I'd head back to.
Unsurprisingly, no one has said that one yet. So I love it. Okay, slightly different. I feel like you might have some experience in this. Your ultimate birthday party, where are you hosting it?
I don't really know if I should tell this story, but I right before we opened, it was Brad's birthday. Well, not right before we'd done major renovation. And I said to Brad, we're never going to have a manor house at our disposal ever again. Let's put on a rave for our closest 30 mates.
Stop.
So we got one of our favourite DJs and we invited our closest 30 mates and we had a huge party, huge house party. Everyone stayed over and it was incredible.
Yeah.
So I think I would I'm definitely, we are hosts at our heart and we love having a good time. We love sharing that time. So I think I would do that, but on another epic scale. Hire a house somewhere because I cannot run the risk of trashing this one.
No,
now.
It's too pretty now. Yeah.
So I think a DJ, a load of friends, an incredible house, maybe on the hilltop in South Africa or somewhere like that. Well, you've also got wine region.
Yes. From one garden of England to another wine garden. Love that. Excellent answer. And then finally, once in a lifetime, that bucket list trip. Where are you heading? And are you staying anywhere special?
So we both feel most calm at sea. But boats are bloody expensive.
I know.
So I really do think if money was no object, I would hire. I don't need an obscene boat, but something that would get us and the kids round tropical islands and carry on sailing and just experiencing the world. You know, in fact. The San Blas Islands I have done. I was only there for a few. There's 376 uninhabited islands between Panama and Mexico with an incredible tribe on some of them called the Cunayala.
Wow.
And I just think if we could get the kids and a boat that we knew was actually going to see us through from one side to the other, climbing trees, grabbing coconuts, talking to the locals, and be diving off the boat and fishing, and that would be the dream.
I love it. Are we talking sailboat vibes or below deck vibes?
Oh, I mean,
if money is of no object.
Yeah, bit of both maybe.
Yeah, love it. Have all the boats you want. Have 2 boats. That sounds amazing. Let me know when you go and I'm going to come along.
Yeah, space for friends.
Love it.
A catamaran, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I would love, that would be fun. And maybe just with one crewman to help. Because we're really hands-on and we like activity and action. So I can see us. We'd be there, we'd be sailing, but if we might just need one pair.
Yeah, just in case a storm comes.
Exactly.
Some expert advice. Yeah. Oh, well, Kristie, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been such a pleasure.
It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this Curated Spaces episode. And if you've enjoyed listening, please do hit that follow or subscribe button. It helps so much with finding new brilliant partners who keep the podcast going so that we can keep sharing the stories behind all of these amazing spaces. And if you are looking for more content, you can find links in the show notes to both our Instagram and Substack, or you can subscribe for our weekly roundup of slow travel and under the radar finds. Now go and crack on with booking that next trip, and I'll catch you next time for more Curated Spaces.